Caitlin Clark could be returning this week after all.
I think she's going to return by the end of the season. The question is, when? Are we really bringing her back against the Minnesota Lynx? Would that be the smartest idea? No, not really. Not really.
It began as what looked like an ordinary roster update, the kind of news that slips under the radar of casual fans. But on August 18th, 2025, the Indiana Fever quietly announced they were releasing guard Kyra Lambert. To most, it was a meaningless blip at the bottom of a transactions page. Yet within hours, this move ignited a firestorm across the WNBA. Why? Because this wasn't just about Lambert. This was about the space she left behind, a space fans immediately believed belonged to one name, Caitlin Clark. And suddenly, everything changed overnight. Kyra Lambert's release wasn't shocking because of who she was. It was shocking because of when it happened. Lambert had barely stepped foot on the court, logging just 1 minute across 2 games. Her presence wasn't reshaping rotations or impacting wins. She was, at best, a depth piece. So why cut her now? In the middle of the season, with playoff stakes looming, fans couldn't ignore the timing. To them, this wasn't random. It was calculated, it was deliberate, and it pointed to one conclusion. Indiana was clearing the path for Caitlin Clark's dramatic return. Almost instantly, social media exploded with theories, memes, and celebratory posts. Fans didn't see Lambert's departure as subtraction. They saw it as addition by subtraction. Every thread, every comment, every post carried the same message. Caitlin Clark is coming back. People began dissecting the roster math, pointing out the obvious. Indiana wasn't cutting a contributor. They were cutting dead weight. And when a team clears out space in such a high-stakes moment, it's not for nothing. It's for someone who shifts everything. And Caitlin Clark is the only player who fits that description. Of course, not every fan bought into theory. Some speculated Indiana might be preparing to sign another guard, perhaps even Kennedy Carter, who had recently made headlines. But those theories fell apart almost instantly. Carter had already signed elsewhere. Others whispered that this was about covering for Sophie Cunningham's health struggles, buying time until she could recover. But when the dust settled, the loudest voices kept echoing the same belief. This move was about Caitlin. The Fever may have kept quiet, but their silence only amplified suspicion, and the anticipation became almost unbearable. For months, the Indiana Fever's fan base has lived in suspense. Caitlin Clark has been absent since July 16th, sidelined by a groin injury that ripped her from the heart of a win streak. Every missed game, every road trip without her presence, felt like a knife twisting deeper into fans' hopes. Each day she was on the floor became another headline, another question mark, another desperate search for answers. And now, with Lambert gone and a roster spot glaringly open, the speculation has hit fever pitch. Was this finally the first undeniable signal of her comeback? The stakes for Indiana couldn't be higher. Despite their struggles, they had clawed their way back to 6th in the standings, fighting tooth and nail to stay relevant in the playoff picture. But looming ahead was a brutal stretch of games that could define their entire season. Minnesota twice, then Seattle, then the Sparks, then the Valkyries. Without Clark, those games looked like a death sentence. With her, they looked like opportunity. The Fever's front office knew it. The players knew it. The fans knew it. And that made every decision suddenly feel like a matter of survival. The chatter wasn't just coming from fans. Beat reporter Scott Agnes, who has relentlessly covered the Fever all season, poured gasoline on the speculation with cryptic comments. When a fan expressed excitement about Clark's return, Agnes warned them to be patient, saying it could be several more weeks. But even that vague timeline didn't calm the storm. If anything, it made the speculation louder. People wanted to believe the roster move meant sooner. They wanted to believe Clark wasn't weeks away. She was days away. And Indiana, with everything on the line, might just be ready to gamble. But that gamble is what makes this story so dangerous. Analysts and former players raised the same warning. If Caitlin Clark's first game back is against the Minnesota Lynx, the best team in the league, it could be disastrous. The Lynx aren't just winning. They're steamrolling the competition with a 28-5 record, crushing everything in their path. Throwing Clark back into that environment isn't just a comeback. It's baptism by fire. It's asking her to save the season against the toughest opponent imaginable. And some argue that's reckless, that it's desperation disguised as hope. but maybe that's exactly the point. The Fever's desperation isn't hard to see. With Sophie Cunningham's injury status still in limbo, Indiana looks like a team scrambling to hold itself together with duct tape. Cutting Lambert didn't fix their depth problem. It didn't heal Sophie. It didn't change the coaching confusion that fans whisper about constantly. But it did send a message they're preparing for something. And when the only card left to play is Caitlin Clark, the message becomes clear. Indiana isn't playing it safe anymore. They're ready to risk it all. Because without Clark, there might not even be a season to save. That's where the WNBA itself enters the picture. This isn't just about the Fever. It's about the entire league. Caitlin Clark isn't merely a star. She's a WNBA's engine. She sells tickets. She fills arenas. She dominates highlight reels and fuels endless debate. When she's gone, the buzz dims. When she's back, the league roars. That's why her absence has felt like a void bigger than just Indiana. And that's why this roster move carries a ripple effect across the WNBA. Everyone knows it. Caitlin Clark's return isn't just about one team's survival. It's about the league's very momentum. Look closer, and you'll see what fans already suspect. Kyra Lambert was never the story. Her release wasn't about her at all. It was about what she represented. A placeholder, a seat warmer, a temporary name filling the void until Clark could reclaim it. And the timing makes it undeniable. This wasn't a random shuffle. This was a calculated shift at the most critical juncture of the season. The Fever could have done it weeks ago, but they didn't. They waited until now. Why? Because they weren't just opening a roster spot. They were preparing for a statement. Everywhere you looked, the whispers were turning into shouts. Fever fans weren't just hopeful. They were convinced. Sports blogs that hadn't mentioned Indiana in years suddenly had breaking news headlines plastered across their sites. Twitter, or X as it's now called, was a blaze of speculation, memes, and countdowns. Insiders were scrambling to confirm what everyone already believed. And through it all, one name kept dominating the conversation. Not Lambert, not Cunningham, not Mitchell or Boston. It was Caitlin Clark, always Caitlin Clark. Because in the WNBA right now, there's no bigger draw, no bigger question mark, and no bigger story. The truth is, Clark's presence isn't just basketball, it's cultural. Every game she plays is a spectacle. Every move she makes is a headline. Her absence has been a void, but her return promises fireworks. And Indiana knows it. The Fever don't just want Clark back, they need her back. Without her, they're a mid-tier team fighting for scraps. With her, they're front-page news, a playoff threat, and the epicenter of the WNBA's attention. That's why this moment feels so electric, so pivotal, so heavy with anticipation. Because it isn't just a comeback, it's the return of the league's heartbeat. But here's the catch. Anticipation can be a dangerous drug. Fans are convinced this roster move means Clark is back any day now. But what if it's a smokescreen? What if Indiana is dangling hope, only to keep people engaged while Clark remains weeks away? That possibility is what makes this situation so volatile. If the Fever don't deliver on the hype, if this roster move isn't followed by a Clark announcement soon, the backlash could be brutal. Because fans aren't just waiting, they're demanding. And in today's WNBA, demanding fans can shake the entire foundation of a franchise. As Indiana's schedule looms large, the pressure intensifies. 2 games against Minnesota could make or break their season. Seattle lurks right behind. Then the Sparks, the Valkyries, and the Mercury. Every one of those teams smells blood in the water. Without Clark, the Fever risk collapsing. With her, they have hope, but it's more than just wins and losses. It's about survival. The Fever's front office knows the math. They don't have time to wait. They don't have the luxury of patience. And that's why this roster move feels less like strategy and more like a desperate cry for salvation. The cruel irony? Caitlin Clark's return is both a blessing and a burden. She's not just expected to play. She's expected to save. To walk back into the chaos and carry Indiana on her shoulders, no matter the cost. And that cost could be heavy. A rushed comeback risks re-injury, fatigue, or burnout. But without her, the Fever may fade into irrelevance before the playoffs even begin. It's a lose-lose scenario dressed up as opportunity. And yet, for Indiana, there's no alternative. Because this season doesn't just belong to Caitlin Clark. It depends on her. Entirely, completely, desperately. Meanwhile, fans are treating every silence as a clue. The Fever's official accounts say nothing. Reporters leak half-truths. Teammates stay quiet. And in that void, speculation thrives. Silence in sports is never neutral. It either means disaster is being hidden or something monumental is about to be unveiled. And in Caitlin Clark's world, silence almost always means the latter, which is why every second that ticks by without an announcement only raises the stakes higher. The Fever know it, the WNBA knows it, and the fans know it too. Something big is coming. The only question is when. And so, the Fever stand at a crossroads, their season hanging in the balance. The release of Kyra Lambert may have been a small move on paper, but symbolically, it was massive. It was the crack before the thunder, the whisper before the scream. Because this is more than just basketball. This is a return of phenomenon, a storyline, a once-in-a-generation player who doesn't just change games, she changes the entire sport. Caitlin Clark's shadow looms over everything. And whether it's tomorrow, next week, or several weeks from now, her return is inevitable, and it will shake everything. But here's the part nobody wants to admit. Caitlin Clark's return doesn't just reshape Indiana's season. It reshapes the entire WNBA power structure. Every defense has to bend around her. Every scouting report shifts overnight. Role players suddenly look like stars because she creates space no one else can. And for rival teams, it means sleepless nights. They build entire game plans around a league without Clark, and now, just as the playoffs near, she's threatening to re-enter the picture. That isn't just a return. That's a seismic shift, the kind that turned contenders into pretenders in a single week. And make no mistake, the ripple effect will stretch beyond the court. ESPN will scramble cameras. Talk shows will dedicate full segments. Merchandise sales will spike overnight. Even ticket brokers are preparing for a frenzy. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just a player, she's an economic engine. Her presence transforms arenas from half full to sold out, from casual interest to cultural obsession. And the league knows it. That's why silence is so strategic right now. They're not hiding her recovery. They're staging a spectacle. They're waiting for the exact moment to flip the switch and unleash the story of the year. Yet behind the anticipation lies an uncomfortable truth. Indiana is betting their entire identity on one player's body, holding up under pressure. And history is not kind to teams that gamble like this. Rush a superstar back too soon, and the consequences can echo for years. Re-injury, distrust, and shattered momentum can ruin not just a season, but a career. The Fever know this risk. They've seen the headlines. They've lived through criticism. And still, they might do it anyway. Because when the league itself is thirsty for storylines, sometimes caution isn't just ignored. It's sacrificed for survival. Fans, of course, don't want to hear that. They're too caught up in the hope, too desperate for a savior after years of mediocrity. For them, Clark isn't just a star, she's a symbol. Proof that Indiana can matter again, that the Fever can rise from the ashes of irrelevance and stand as the epicenter of women's basketball. That symbolism is intoxicating, and it's why patience has vanished from the conversation. They don't care about timelines, about injuries, about medical advice. They care about one thing only, the return of Caitlin Clark, no matter the cost. And so the stage is set, not just for a comeback, but for a reckoning. When Clark finally walks back onto the court, whether against Minnesota, Seattle, or some soft opponent, the world will be watching. Every dribble, every pass, every shot will be dissected under a microscope. If she shines, it will confirm everything her fans believe. If she struggles, it will fuel every critic waiting to pounce. Either way, it won't just be a game. It will be a spectacle. The Fever know it. The league craves it. And soon, the world will witness it.